It may seem like the answer is completely obvious, but why join a gym? Hey there, and thanks for joining me in this first in a series of videos that I'm putting out to accompany a piece of content that I've already created on dcsfit.com, the core. The content is called The Gym Paradox, the pros and cons of joining a gym. And it is a very, very meaty piece of content. If anyone has actually made their way from the start of that all the way to the end in one reading, I'd be mightily impressed. Please let me know. I would love to know that someone has taken the time to do that. I know a few people have come back to me and told me that they've made a concerted effort to read all the way through it. And some people have said they've read most of it but skimmed some parts of it. And that's okay. That's what it was designed for. It's designed to be read in sections or to be skimmed through. Now, the purpose of that is to be able to read the headers, pick out the pieces that are relevant to you, some of the questions you may not have asked yourself, or some of the questions that are pertinent to you at any given time, and then you can read the content below that. But then you can bookmark the page, come back to it whenever you like, and if some other questions come up or some things that you didn't think of before have come up, you can go back in and read those sections. When I put this out originally, I put it out in a few places in social media and I've sent it out to my newsletter. And I've asked the people on that newsletter to come back to me and let me know if they've got any thoughts or have any experience that pertains to the content of that article. And a few people have, and I really appreciate that. And I may be bringing up one or two points from some of the replies that I've had through these videos. But if you're one of the people that has read it so far, or if you read it after this and you feel like you've got something to say on the subject, please get in touch, let me know, and I'll try and address those points in future videos, or alternatively, if it requires an update of the content, then I will do. So that's why I've not created like a PDF content version of it that you can download and just keep, because I'm looking for this to be a sort of living, breathing article, something that I can look to adapt and change as circumstances change over the years. And if recent history is anything to go by, changes do happen. So I've no idea what's going to come off the back of the restrictions that we've all just had to go through recently. What I don't know is, I owned a gym before all that kicked off, and I don't own one now. But that's not exactly pertinent to the situation. There's a bit more to it than that. So we'll go into that at some other time. For now, though, what I want to do is look at the first section of the content that I've put out, and the question there being, why join a gym? Now, I know that that may seem like a blatantly obvious question. It may seem something that you just think, well, obviously I know why you join a gym. But I think the reasons why people join a gym is somewhat misunderstood. When you decide to join a gym, what invokes that reaction in the first place? Now, it may well be that you've been going to a gym for years, and in this instance, where we're sort of there's been restrictions and now you're allowed to go back. Maybe you'd cancelled a membership and now you're going to go and join again. So fair enough, you're sort of just slotting something back in there. But even then, that still might not be the ideal reason for rejoining, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But what most people do in normal times to make their decision as to join a gym is because they feel that they need something. They need to change something. Quite often it's a case of a feeling that gets invoked by circumstance. So, you're maybe out playing with nieces and nephews or something, and you're running around, and suddenly you realize how unfit you are, and you feel like you need to do something about that because you didn't realize how bad things were. Or you're walking up a big flight of stairs and your knee starts burning, or your hips hurting, or you're just completely out of breath again and you feel like you need to do something. Or you're putting on some clothes that you haven't worn for a while and they really don't fit, and you feel like you need to lose some weight. Or you feel that you need to bulk up, you need to get stronger, you need to get faster, whatever. There is this feeling of need. I need to do something. Very rare does somebody just wake up in the morning and just notionally think, I think I'll join a gym today. There's usually something that is the catalyst to move the person from not going to a gym to suddenly wanting to join one. But when it comes to that part of it, I think what people tend to do is they feel that they are going to join the gym and that's it, they've made a movement now. And some people just rest on their laurels there. They feel like they need to do something. They've joined and they've done something. They've made a commitment to something and they've taken the first step. And that allows them internally to sort of breathe a sigh of relief, take the foot off the gas and feel like, okay, I've done that part of it, I'll get to the next part soon, and soon never really comes. But when you do join a gym, that you've done one thing and one thing only that is positive. You have made a statement of intent. So, the statement of intent that you've made when you join a gym is that you have made a commitment to doing something and that you're committing to buy into the tools and the equipment that the facility offers to allow you to do the work to move you forward. But that's very different than actually doing something. Okay, you actually took action, and that takes you out of the realms of fantasy and dreaming and wishing into doing. And that's a great start. So I'm not belittling that at all. It's just that don't think that it's any more than that. That is all you have done at this point. All you've done is picked up a phone, gone on Google, something like that, and then maybe turned up, looked around the place, signed a form, and handed over your bank details. But that's all you've done. You've still got to follow through in the commitment thereafter. I think a lot of people think, well, once they've signed over this money, that the gym is going to take over. More often than not, this happens with personal training, where people buy into a personal trainer and they think this personal trainer is going to wave their magic wand and it's going to fix everything. When it comes to joining a gym, I think a lot of that gets hyped up into the idea that you're going to get the help and the assistance you need, and it's akin to hiring a personal trainer, just cheaper. But ultimately, it's all going to come back to you. You're going to have to do the work. Now, this is really the equivalent of if you were saying you were going to do a DIY project. You're going to put up some shelves or something. You've decided for a while that you need to do it, but you've never really got round to it. And then you're fed up tripping over some of the things that are lying around the house. And you think, no, I need to do something here. So same kind of vibe. But you don't have the tools. So you head down to your local DIY store and you buy yourself a toolkit. Now, if you buy the first toolkit you find, what you're going to find is that it's just full of stuff, and it may well have the stuff in it that you need, but if it doesn't contain, for example, a drill, then maybe you're not going to be able to do the job that you thought you were going to do. You might still be able to do it though, because maybe while you were there you picked up a few other things like solvents and what have you, so you've got a tube of No More Nails and you can glue your shelves up. But if your intent was to put up shelves that were screwed into the wall and you needed a drill, a screwdriver, screws, roll plugs, all that kind of thing. If you only bought some of those things, then you're not going to be able to do the job the way that you thought you were going to without going back and making another purchase. And that's really an analogy that might be very much akin to the idea of joining a gym. You're only buying the tools. You're buying the facility that you can go to, and it may well be that that's something that you really need, and we'll address that in future videos about the environment and the quality of the equipment that you're going to buy into. You may feel that you're going to get help and assistance from the people that work there, but again, that's something we're going to come back to, but you can go and read about that in the article at the moment, the difference between a fitness instructor and a personal trainer, for example, or how much time and energy and effort someone is likely to put into you for your relatively tiny, no matter how big you think it is, gym membership. If you were to go and buy the drill and the screwdriver, the roll plugs and everything else, if you took the time beforehand to work out what it was you needed, then you went and bought all the equipment that you needed, brought it home, and it just lay there, you're still not going to get anywhere. Yes, you bought the tools, so you're a step further down the line, but for all intents and purposes, those shelves aren't getting put up yet until you decide that you're going to get the tools out and actually do the job in front of you. So once you've understood the idea that you're going to buy into some tools, then it might be worth asking yourself, is this what you actually need at this moment in time? Do you need the tools that a gym offers you? It might be a useful thing to have. It'll certainly feel like it's a benefit to you because you're going to have access to a facility and a space that is dedicated for health and fitness, and that may feel like it's the right thing to do. You didn't have access to that before, you do now, you're bound to make progress. But if you haven't actually taken the time to sit back and think, what is it I need right now? What do I need in my life right now to move me forward? Which obstacles are in my way? What do I need to overcome next? And if the thing that you need to overcome next is not addressed by the facility that you've chosen to go and become a member of, then it was not the best decision for you to make at this point. It could end up being a distraction, so you don't focus on those things. Then that just stifles your progress, and the result of that is that you don't move forward, or you don't move forward at the level you feel that you ought to be moving forward. And if that's the case, you're going to get frustrated, you'll give up, and then you'll get put off the idea of joining gyms altogether. Whereas it could well be that joining a gym was the best idea for you in a month's time, or in 3 months' time, or 6 months' time, or whenever, further down the line. But there was other things that you had to do first, and there were other tools that you required in order to do the prep work that would then get you to the point where you're ready to go and make use of the facility in front of you. So what are the things that really are a catalyst to moving you to the idea of, I need to join a gym, and then choosing one? Well, it could be that it's just the first thing that you thought of, because quite often, as you're walking through most major cities these days, gyms are everywhere. They certainly were before the pandemic. Whether that's the case now, to a large degree, I think most of the bigger ones have survived through this. It's just the smaller, more bespoke ones that felt like maybe it was a step too far for them to have to make the journey all the way through this struggle. So yeah, it's something that's in your face an awful lot. And even if it's not because you're walking up the high street, you scroll through Facebook or Instagram or pretty much any social media, and you're bound to, at some point, if you've even had a notion of the idea of fitness, you're going to see an advert for a gym. And as a result of that, it usually is in your head is the idea of, I need to make a difference to my fitness, I should join a gym. There's no more thought about it, it's just the idea that that's what people do. When they want to make a change, they join a gym. Quite often you'll work with people who are gym members, and they're fit and healthy, so therefore that's the sort of thing you do. Or you just know of people who go to gyms, you've got friends or friends of friends or something, and they're incredibly fit, or they have what you want, and they're a member of a gym, so therefore that's what you must do. Or you watch a celebrity on TV or Instagram or something, or you've read a magazine, and they go to the gym, and therefore that's what you must do. What you don't then have is the idea of, where were they in their journey when they joined? At what point were they at in their journey? What obstacles did they need to overcome? And are your obstacles the same obstacles that they are currently facing? I would suggest that in most cases the answer is no, because we all live completely individualized lives. We don't live the same life as our neighbours or even our colleagues. Our lives are different. One person working the same job as another, but one's got a family and the other one is single, that's going to have very different lifestyles. The situation then, if you move from one job to another, you've got one person that works 9 to 5, but you've got another person that works shifts. They are going to have very different lifestyles as well. So you can't compare those two things. But physiologically, we're all different. And we're all going to have, over the years, developed different imbalances, different weaknesses, different strengths. And it's these foundational level things that you really should be taking some time to look at before you make that decision as to what you need to do next. What are your movement patterns like? Can you move freely? For example, if I go back to the original thing that I mentioned of going up the stairs, if you do walk up a flight of stairs and your knee burns every time you do it, maybe that's something that needs to be addressed first. And if you walk into a gym and you're handed a program on the day of your induction and it involves leg press or squats or something like that, because the person's just taking you around and they want to just show you something quickly that you can do, and this is what they're used to doing, they throw this at you, and maybe you say to them, oh, well, actually my knee burns sometimes when I walk up the stairs. So either they just eliminate leg exercises altogether, or they might give you something like a leg curl or a leg extension or something like that, and they'll try it out and see if there's any pain. If there's no pain at the time, they just let you continue on with it. It's going to be the most basic thing as far as what can you do to keep you safe and still training. That's very different than what you need at this moment in time. Now, you'll have gone from doing nothing to doing something, so you're going to feel some kind of benefit in the short term, but these restrictions that you have are going to be there, and they're going to hold you back at some point. Now, you could say that you're going to overcome them further down the line, but if you don't do something about them early, some of those exercises that you're doing might just exacerbate the problem. If you've got an imbalance in your legs and you're doing squats, then that imbalance might just grow. So the stronger, more dominant side is going to take over more often during the workouts that you're doing, and as a result, it will get stronger, and the weaker side will lag further and further behind. So if you don't know that, then how are you supposed to do something about it? So taking some time to assess how you feel, how you move, and what limitations you have before you that might hold you back is absolutely a worthwhile use of your time. Now, when you're choosing the gym in the first place, the idea that you're going to choose one because there is one local to you, that is not necessarily the best use of your time either. Now, this is something we'll come on to again in future videos, but it's something I want to address now because one of the responses that I got in my reach out to the article that I created was from someone who had just joined a gym, I think just before reading the article. And the result of this is, or the backstory of this, I don't want to name the person or anything because it's not, I don't want to be highlighting this one person. But what I do want to point out is the story, because this will sound familiar to an awful lot of people. Maybe not the first part of it, because it's to do with the fact that pre-restrictions, she was going to a gym where there was some personal training involved. So it was group personal training. It was a small bespoke gym where the owner knew everyone. And as a result of that, the groups were small and very intimate, and they were tailored to the individual person. She was going to these and she was enjoying it, and that's great. That's ideal. Then, through the restrictions, that facility had to close down. So, in looking for somewhere to replace that, having got several months into the restrictions and realising that there was a need to make change, she started to look at what her options were. And based on what was close to her home and her work, something in between those two, there was only two options. And one of them she dismissed because she felt it was going to be too busy. So the other one she contacted with the view of going for a tour. Now, bear in mind that this tour was done during the restrictions. So walking into the facility, she had a tour, looked around the place, and realised that this could work for her. But keep in mind, there was no one else there. You're looking at this vast, vast building and seeing all this equipment available to you, and it would look spectacular, because if that was your gym, if you just got to go in and just use all of this at your will, then that would feel amazing. For how much? Not very much money. Now I believe it was less than £100 at that point, £100 a month. Still quite expensive for a lot of gyms, but this was an expensive gym. But within it, then when she was being shown around the rest of the facility, there were other things that were shown to her: swimming pools, jacuzzis, saunas, all these kind of things. And to be able to access all of the content of that facility, it was extra money. So it ended up being more than £100. The result being that it was almost the same amount of money she was paying for personal training pre-lockdown. which to her was justifiable because she was now paying slightly less. I think it was like £5 a month less than she was paying before, so she could afford that. But bear in mind, she didn't go in looking for a jacuzzi. She just saw one and went, oh, well, that would be nice, and thought, yeah, I'd quite like to use that. But that was never on her radar in the first place. So either that could end up being a distraction, where she just turns up and goes to the jacuzzi instead of working out, which is obviously not ideal. Or it might well be that she goes to use the other things and never uses this thing. So she's paid for it now, she's signed up to a contract, and she's kind of stuck with it. Now, in discussing it with her a little bit, I think she feels that is possibly the case, that she could have made a better decision. But the decision's been made now. So she's just going to have to work with what she's got. The thing is, it'll be workable. It'll be possible to do something more than she was doing before. So you can't say it was a completely bad investment. Whether or not it was the right investment or the ideal optimal investment for her at this time, that's another matter. But the other thing on that is that there's the view that she wants to go back and do the things that she was doing before the restrictions. Now, that's been a long time. There was a gap in the middle of it. More or less, we've been pretty restricted now for well over a year. So anybody going from the point where they were training before and then just launching back into it again and trying to do exactly what they were doing beforehand are just asking for trouble at this stage. There are bound to be imbalances and postural issues that have developed, especially if you moved from, for example, an office job to working from home. Your environment completely changed. And if you just started working from home and you ended up with your laptop on your dining room table, for example, then your posture is probably going to be pretty bad. Not only that, because you're moving less, there's probably some mobility issues, and maybe your general fitness has gone down a little bit because your movement from day to day has probably dropped. On top of that as well, obviously your strength is bound to have dropped off if you were doing strength training before. And going back in and trying to get back up to those weights that you were hitting before is an injury just waiting to happen. So taking some time to assess what it is you need right now, assessing your body, assessing the obstacles that are in front of you that are going to hold you back, and then looking at how to deal with them is obviously going to be a better route for you to make a decision going forward. So I would invite you all to take a minute just to step back and reflect. After you've finished watching this, press pause and just take a minute even to reflect on what it is you need. Not what things do you need. What does your body need? What does your psyche need? Because it might well be that that's what you need from a gym. Maybe what you need is the energy of other people. But then you need a gym that's going to provide you that energy. There's no point in saying, well, the closest one is the one round the corner and there's no atmosphere to it and there's no energy and there's no drive to it. If what you need is that drive to move forward, look for something that's going to provide that, but in the context of what you need physiologically speaking. So if it happens to be that you've been sitting hunched over a desk for the last 10, 12 months and everything's been set up at the wrong height, and now you've got a sore back half the time, or your neck's really sore, or your shoulders are no longer have the range of motion that they had before. These are things that are definitely worth addressing, because if you don't, you're just going to set yourself up for a fall further down the line. And going to a gym might not be the best environment for you to do that. It may be better for you to head to a physio to be assessed. It might be better for you to go and see a sports therapist just to get yourself loosened off. It may be that your best port of call in the short term is to go and start doing yoga, which may be something that you can go and do now and then develop that into the idea that you're going to add the gym on, or take one away and put the other one in its place further down the line. So the takeaway here is, I would invite you to take the time to reflect on why it is you want to join a gym. Or if you're in a gym and you want to move, reflect on why you want to move. What things are frustrating you? And then don't just look for somewhere that's going to overcome those things, but actually that because that's where your vision is at, you're going to lose other parts of your training that were necessary by moving to this other place. Certainly don't move because of price. That's never a good reason. And again, we will come back to that in future videos. The idea is that you need something that is going to deliver on your current requirements. Not requirements that you're going to need 6 months down the line or a year down the line. What do you need right now? If that happens to be a gym, then great. What are those needs? And then go and assess every facility around about you and try to find out what facility is going to deliver the best environment, the best guidance if you need it, and the best tools if you actually need tools. Maybe you just need the space to move you forward past the current obstacles. You can always change further down the line. You're not tied into anywhere forever. Now, some places have got long-term contracts, so keep that in mind. If you're tied into a place for a year, and I've known of, not in this country, but I do know of some gyms where you could be tied in for 2 or 3 years in other countries. If that's going to be the case, that could be problematic. But if you're only going to be tied in for a month, say, and then after that it's just rolling months, you have to give 30 days notice or something, then you really don't have a problem, do you? You're just trying to work out where you are at any given point. If you're at the position where you're going to be tied in for a year, then obviously make sure that what you're going to need from this place, you're going to be able to utilize it for a year of your journey. And that may take a little bit of working out. But ultimately, this is an investment. So your decision here is based on whether or not you're making the right investment for you at this point. Going back to the idea of the putting up shelves and things that I touched on earlier, on a bigger scale than that, if you were buying a house or a car, let's go with a house. If you were walking down the street and you knew you were looking for a house and the first one you saw for sale, you just decided, yeah, I'll buy that one. That'll do for me. It's I can afford it and I found one, so that'll do. I think you might look at more than one before you make that decision. And it might well be that you're weighing up elements of, well, this isn't quite right about this one, but this isn't quite right about this one. So which is the better option? And what you don't do in that situation usually is go for the cheaper one just because it's the cheaper one. You don't use that as the swaying factor. You have a budget. You look at everything underneath that budget. And quite often when you're buying a house, from my experience anyway, is that you stretch that budget. You started off with a budget here and you end up paying just a little bit more as a result of you're kind of looking around and what it is that you want from somewhere. But you would assess things like local schools if you have kids or if you're going to have kids, local facilities, amenities. Are there shops nearby? Is it easy to get onto the motorway? How accessible is it to your place of work? All these things, they go into it, as well as, does the house suit your needs? Does it have enough bedrooms? Does it feel comfortable to you? Does it suit your personality? And do you feel that you could live there comfortably? All of these things come into it. You take your time and you think about these things. But people don't do that with gyms. They sort of look at one, maybe two, and if one's a lot cheaper than the other one, they'll probably go with the cheaper one. If one's really close to them, they'll go with the close one. But it's one of these things to try and take a little bit more time than that and think, is this going to address the problem that I've got? Because if it doesn't matter how cheap it is, it's just a waste of money because you're not getting out of it what you need from it. Again, going back to the tool thing, if you bought just a random toolbox and you look in it, and as I said before, if you don't have a drill and you needed a drill, then was this a good investment? You'd probably been better buying the components that you needed for the job in hand. And then you can always build on that later down the line. When I come back in the next videos, we're going to be talking about the advantages of joining a gym. Now, some of these might seem obvious, but again, some of the ones that you think are advantages may not even be on the list. You can go and look at the article already and start seeing how that sort of plays out. But some of the things that people see as advantages are actually disadvantages. And some things that people don't realize are advantages are advantages. So these are definitely things worth having a review of before you make the decision to go and even join a gym in the first place, and making a decision as to which gym, because you really need to try and think beyond just the shiny object in front of you. If you're going to make a good investment in yourself, then looking at all the factors before you make that investment is going to serve you well further down the line. One last thing to note, which again I will bring up in future videos, but because we are just talking about the whys of joining a gym, if you end up joining somewhere because you're getting a deal through your work or because it happens to be close to you, again, I would say that that is a very poor investment. I am aware of many people, many people who have joined gyms because they got a deal through their work and it was incredibly cheap. And then upon being asked, how often did you go in the last year? Not this last year, but at the time, we're talking a couple of years ago here, then the answer might be once, possibly twice. And when you add that all up, they probably paid something like about £150 a session to go to the gym. But it seems cheap because they were paying small amounts every month in comparison to the normal membership. So if you're not going to use something, you'd be as well just flushing the money down the toilet. That's cheap as well. When it comes to the idea of how close something is to you, well, that may be a factor if time is a factor for you. But what I'd invite you to think about here as well is, if time is already a factor for you and you feel that you need somewhere that's incredibly close because time is that tight, that you don't have a lot of time to be able to put into this, is this really for you at this moment in time? If you don't have time already, adding this thing on that you have to go somewhere to do, even if it's only a short journey, 5-10 minutes up the road, then those 5 or 10 minutes one way, 5 or 10 minutes the other way, potentially a shower after you're finished, depending on how hard the workout was, these things are all adding time onto your day. And if you don't have it already, what makes you think you're going to have it just because you've joined? So take the time to think before you make a decision. This is an investment in you, and it's important for your future, for your drive to continue this journey forward, that you make the right decision. And that right decision may be not to join a gym at this moment in time, but to hold off on it until 3-4 months down the line. And if you do that, you may well get more out of it at the point when you join. Until the next video, stay strong, stay safe, stay awesome. See you next time. Bye for now.